At least 177 people have died in an airliner crash in South Korea. The Boeing 737 was en route from Bangkok, Thailand, when it ran off the runway and hit a retaining wall. Here's a live look at the scene. This is happening right now, where first responders are sifting through the wreckage. The crash happened past 9 p.m. there, local time. It happened in Muhan, on the country's southwest coast, about 180 miles south of Seoul. The pilot made a mayday call to the tower minutes before the crash. We do want to warn you, this video might be disturbing to some. The Jeju airplane is seen here without landing gear, speeding towards the end of the runway before it burst into flames as soon as it slammed into the wall. 175 passengers and 6 crew members were on board. This is believed to be the deadliest aviation accident on South Korean soil. Amazingly, there are 2 survivors. 2 crew members, a man and a woman, were rescued from the tail of the plane. They have moderate to severe injuries. We also know the so-called black boxes that records the plane's data, they have been recovered. Local fire officials say they believe the crash was caused by a combination of bad weather and the plane hitting birds as it descended to land in Muon. Here with us now is Captain Steve Green. He's a retired captain with thousands of hours on a 737. Captain, thanks for joining us. I know this is breaking. This was short notice. We appreciate your time this morning. I know it is very early in this investigation, but what is your reaction when you see that terrible video, and what happens next?
Yeah, good morning. One of the first questions I have is what kind of wall was that close to the end of the runway? That seems to be it's a little bit surprising to me looking at the video. Otherwise, it is too early. We do have the recorders from what I've heard, and that will give us a lot of information very quickly. So it's really hard to say what could have happened.
Sure, especially this early on. Workers in the tower say the landing gear never came down. I mentioned the pilot did make a mayday call. Local officials say it was a bird strike warning. It was given. That's when the pilot made that call. Could those things all be related?
Yeah, and you know, it's just in the early reading I have of it, you know, one of the things that occurs to me is that in the changing the runway, you know, they did turn the approach around. Changing the runway, depending on whether they hit birds, when they hit birds, how rapidly the effect of the birds took place, all of those things kind of combined to figure out how they ended up the way they did. But you know, the bottom line is you got it down on the runway, and without the wall, they probably would have been just fine.
Oh, that's so ominous. So the airline is known for being a low-budget carrier. It has never had a crash in its history, or at least a fatal crash. Does this give you any insight from a company perspective?
No, not at all, really. I mean, to be honest with you, I had not even heard of the carrier before this morning. So that's probably good for them. I mean, but you know, the airplane's got a huge safety record. This will unfold fairly quickly. Now that we have the recorders, it won't take too long to work out all of the things that happened.
You mentioned how odd it was to have the wall so close to a plane landing on the runway, but how rare is it to have an incident like this when landing?
Oh, something like this? I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anything quite like this. You know, intentionally landing without the landing gear, if you have a landing gear failure, that's happened many times. We all understand those things. Normally, if you put the airplane down on the runway within the touchdown zone, which is the first 1/3 of the runway, you won't have any problem stopping at all. And of course, without the wheels, you're going to stop fairly quickly. In this case, my guess is that he was able to get back to the runway, but he ended up touching down somewhat later, farther down the runway, and was still moving. But I still think that area, we'll see what the investigation yields about the runway dimensions and the stuff surrounding it, such as the wall and so forth. But I would assume that he just didn't get it down until later, farther down the runway, which may have all been a factor in this. And you know, it's not surprising, depending on based on all the things that were going on.
Let's talk. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's
fact-driven, unbiased coverage.